good for her. You have to teach her to channel it into a form of dedication and discipline in the martial arts.
And so, I just came to find it to be an extremely beautiful name, and I loved that it had sort of an organic quality to it,
yes.
as well as
Yeah, I loved it when I read that, and I thought, wow, what a beautiful name. And I often wonder why people pick certain names, but that was just absolutely beautiful. Mixed, martial arts is just such an incredible combination of things anymore, it seems. Do you think your father, he wasn't really a traditionalist when it came to martial arts? He created his own style. So do you think that he would be impressed by some of the Ultimate Fighting Championships and things that are going on in the fighting world? Do you think this is something that your father would be opposed to, or would he be in his element trying to design new ways of fighting skills?
I think that he would be extremely, and was in his lifetime, extremely open to new ways of thinking and testing, the real combat, testing real combat in terms of martial arts. He certainly believed, one of the reasons that he stopped training in traditional styles was because he believed that adhering to one style over another is that styles separate people instead of bring them together, and that really the truth behind real combat is to learn to use your arms and legs in a way that is simple and direct and devastating to your opponent, which is why he created his own art, Jeet Kune Do. And there's a bit of a misconception that Jeet Kune Do is a form of mixed martial arts. People think that it is, made up of 20 different arts, and it's a Taekwondo kick and this kind of throw and, that kind of thing. It's really not. Mm-hmm. It's really his own personal expression boiled down to a very simplistic and bare minimum approach in terms of how to most directly dispatch your opponent. That having been said, he really did believe in looking into other arts and looking into all the variety of ways that there are to use your body. And he certainly believed in real live combat. I mean, he was definitely a pioneer in terms of full contact sparring and no-holds-barred fighting. The UFC is definitely on that track, and they are they are a sport, so they have to have rules. Obviously, it's not just going to be a bloodbath, but I think he would be very happy to see
it is that,
Well, sure, of course. In fact, I was just at the fight in Anaheim on Saturday night, so I enjoy going to watch it myself, but I enjoy it because I understand the skill involved in it. And I think that a lot of people see brutal violence, and it's hard to get past brutal violence, but really it takes a lot of skill and a lot of determination and courage to get up in there and do what those guys do and to be a well-rounded fighter. And so I think my father would applaud people trying to be the best fighters that they can be and to be well-rounded and be able to defend themselves against anything. So.
Well, there is an element of showmanship that's involved in this as well, and I think that's kind of a hard mix to be able to bring a persona to the arena, to the ring, and still maintain an element of skill and what you're really there to do.
Well, I mean, I don't know, in terms of showmanship, I mean, obviously they put on an exciting show, and obviously the fighters themselves have their own individual personalities, but in terms of what goes on in the ring, it's pretty much as real as it can be, and so it's not like wrestling where they're pretending.
No.
No,
it absolutely is not in wrestling. I great extreme, and it brings me to me when I do watch wrestling occasionally with my nephew who just loves it. It reminds me of that same excitement that we had when I was growing up and watching your father. It had that sharpness. It had that thrill. It was something. It had great power to it. That watching traditional boxing, even boxing, I think pales in comparison to that kind of. There's a passion involved in that, if I'm not mistaken. At least that's what I sense. And I believe that's like I said, today's wrestling kind of mimics that feeling that people had when they watched the martial artists, such as your father in movies.
Well, and I think because, for instance, with my father, what he did in his movies, while he tried to bring a certain amount of his own philosophy and his own art to his films, he was very conscious that films are for entertainment. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people get confused with what they see in his movies as being representative of Jeet Kune Do, which it's not. Jeet Kune Do is real fighting, and what he did in his movies was for entertainment value, and he was very conscious of that when making a film. And so in terms of something like wrestling, they're putting on a show, and so it's exciting to people to see that kind of a show. And in terms of something like the UFC, the show is more the environment in which essentially these gladiators get together and really do the business of combat.
Well, all I know is it's very exciting and it's a thrill, and for me, as I said, it brings back that same thrill when I was watching your father's movies and that type of genre that existed then. Yeah. And I think right now, even in the movies that we're seeing today, I mean, look at all the Kill Bill and all of that, there's this martial art at the core of it. There's this discipline, there's this honor, there's this respect, there's this, and I think that elevates the fighting aspect of it a great deal. We've got a caller online. Our first caller is Nellie Lee from Texas. Nellie, will you please ask your question? Or Houston, I'm sorry. Well, that's Texas. Houston is Texas, folks, just for those of you that didn't know.
I'm honored to speak with you. I was a very big fan of your father, and I still am. I'm sorry to say was, I still am. What my question is, I admired his absolutely control over his mind and his body. Where did he learn this? My grandson is in martial arts, and he is rather successful, and he is a big fan. So when he comes, I can ask, I can tell him this. And, where did he learn his techniques with his mind? I don't see any martial art fighter today who has so much control over his body and his mind. And I'm so amazed with your father.